Dad, I was watching the game last night, the Monday Night Football game, the Ravens against the Chiefs, and I had a thought that I can't confirm because I was born in 1988. But I was thinking, gee, Andy Reid looks even better than last year. He continues to improve with age. He's from the Bill Walsh tree, theoretically. He started with the West Coast offense, and I believe, having never seen Bill Walsh coach in my life, that Andy Reid has surpassed what Bill Walsh did and is now the most creative play caller in NFL history. But I can't support it. So, Dad, is that crazy to say?
So you're saying not as a head coach?
No.
As a
nothing about
caller.
winning. Just in terms of the creativity of offensive scheme.
Okay, I would ask you one more question. There is a person we go to talk about
Yes.
Offense, a former coach that we don't reveal. Does he believe that as well?
It's his point. I'm stealing his point. And the reason he said it is because what Andy Reid has done is he's taken all of Bill's principles and integrated them into a new age shotgun offense, which is a necessity. It says in the new age NFL, if you're not in the shotgun, your quarterback's going to get sacked 80 times a season. And Bill was so dogmatically against the shotgun for two reasons. He wanted the timing of the drop, and he did not want the quarterback to take his eyes off the defense. Now, maybe he would have changed his philosophy on the shotgun, but he feels that would have been a limit. You talk about limits, he feels that would have been a limit, and that Reid has surpassed it.
Okay. I am in trepidation to disagree with our offensive guru, who I admire and love.
Mm-hmm.
I might disagree. And now, look, part of it is I covered Bill. I'm an old guy, and you tend to always think that what you had was better. So please factor this in, people. What I want to say is I'm willing to admit that Andy Reid has surpassed Bill in what he's done with Bill's offense. You understand the technicalities of it better. I would say if Bill were still coaching, he wasn't locked in like Gruden to doing things one way.
Right.
I think Bill would have adapted. I think with all of his genius, Bill would have adapted, and I think he could have been at the Andy Reid level or beyond. Of course, I can't prove it. I'm reluctant.
Our friend is saying he wouldn't have adapted to the shotgun. And you're saying, of course he would have. He's Bill Walsh.
Of course he would have. I think, in fact, and if he didn't adapt to the shotgun, he would have adapted another way. The point is, if he saw that it wasn't working, he was not committed to a system. He was committed to winning, and he was committed to, who are my guys? How Joe Montana doesn't throw long. What'll I do? I'll make it a shorter passing game. He was extremely flexible, and I think to sort of lock him in time is an extreme interpretation.
Fair.
So I don't see that. I think Bill, of everybody, would have been adaptable in ways that Shanahan is adaptable.
Isn't it true that when he was a little bit later, like maybe in the late 90s, that he would see people trying to run his offense, or he would hear so-and-so? Tell the story.
Yeah, that's what happened. He was at a practice, and Mariucci, again, was a West Coast disciple because he had been with Holmgren up in Green Bay.
Andy Reid was on the same staff, I believe. Well, I believe John Gruden too. All
this was all West Coast staff.
Yeah.
And then one day, and I don't know who Bill said this to, but they were at a 49ers practice in Santa Clara, and somebody said, "Look, Bill, Steve is using a lot of the stuff that you used." And Bill, and he said, whoever said it as praise of Bill and praise of Mariucci. And Bill, from what I understand, was disgusted, and he said, "You mean he hasn't brought it any beyond what I did? It's a new age. You need to keep adding ideas." And his point, I believe, was that Steve could drive the car, but he couldn't make the car. And I would apply the same thing to Gruden.
Right. And I think what Bill was saying is like, he's using my stuff from 10 years ago. If I would use my stuff from 10 years ago.
I wouldn't use my stuff from,
That's not coaching. That's stenography, that's copying.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's making a recipe from a cookbook. That has no creativity.
Yeah, so that's not what Andy Reid did. And what's interesting about Andy Reid is that he continues to improve. And we've been talking about coaches who kind of like seem like their day is done on the way out. Who pops to mind for you?
Oh, Iggy, before we do that, I want to say one other thing about Reid,
sure.
if it's okay.
Please
Walsh,
do.
and then we'll come back to that. I know we were talking about as offensive minds, but I can't help but notice they were both head coaches, Bill and Andy
True.
Reid. And what the hell has Andy Reid done? He
True.
won a Super Bowl, which he almost lost, Diggy. I mean, if he didn't have that quarterback who sort of took the game out of his hands,
Yep.
Andy would have lost again.
Yes.
So I see Andy as we call high-level losers.
Yeah.
Now he's won a Super Bowl, but he had until then been a high-level loser. The highest level loser.
I'm not disagreeing at all. I totally agree. I agree. Yep.
So, I mean, in terms of importance in the NFL, you could say, sure, Andy has gone past Bill, and he has gone past. But Bill won 3 Super Bowls and almost bequeathed another one over to Seifert. And what a coaching tree. Does this guy Reid have a coaching tree like that?
No, he's got Doug Peterson. Guys coming in.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the next.
That was a good segue. Yeah. He's got Doug Peterson, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, who's coming to the Niners. Levi's Stadium on Sunday with a record of 0-2-1. What do you think of Doug Peterson, Dad?
Well, here's the thing. The guy spectacularly won a Super Bowl with his backup quarterback.
Beat the Patriots.
He was spectacular, and I thought, this is the new great thing. This is the new great thing. And all of a sudden, boom. And listen, Iggy, I don't know why. Some of them have a very short shelf life, but he's a dud. He's a dud with a great success. Iggy, he'll be out after this season. He'll be out before the season ends.
I agree. I think most of these guys have maybe one good idea, and it gets like a gimmick or an idea. And also, most guys, when you get the huge mega contract, that's it. That's it. You know, you've gotten to the big game, you get the huge contract, you had one idea. Where is the driving force to continue to work and evolve? That's rare for people to do that. We've talked about that with quarterbacks. I think it applies to coaches too.
I'm going to say, I thought he was going to be great. Peterson, he's Adam Gase.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's
and
Adam
with
Gase.
Shanahan this year, I was kind of worried, like, let's see what Shanahan does after getting this 6-year extension. And after watching Weekend, I was like, ooh, is that how you respond to getting paid? And now, after watching the last 2 weeks, it looks like Shanahan from last year. I think he's committed to perfecting his craft, not just committed to being rich.
Yes. And I want to come back to a theme here. I think we've been talking about the difference between dogs and dogs. I think Doug Peterson's a dog.
I think he's a dog too.
He's not a dog. Dogs are wonderful, but he's what in Brooklyn we call a dog.
What about the guy in New Orleans?
He's become a dog.
Yeah.
Now, he may even be a Hall of Fame coach, but he's used up what we're talking about.
Peyton.
Yeah,
Sean Payton. He won 1 Super Bowl. This guy's with 2 rings that haven't made it in.
Yeah, he had great ideas. I think they need to get rid of him. Also, they need to get rid of their quarterback. Their sell-by date is gone. And I think Sean Payton needs to take another vacation. I think he's turning into a high-level dog.
Bruce Arians, I think the league is changing. I think the league is changing, and if you're not keeping up, then I don't know. Even Bruce Arians, Tampa doesn't look so dominant right now. I don't know.
No, you thought he would go there, right?
Yeah. All of a sudden, the teams that are succeeding right now are teams with young athletic quarterbacks and young creative coaches. Seems to be what's going on.
Yeah, Bruce Arians, he feels like he's worn out. I'm going to tell you another high-level dog, and it hurts me to say this, Vic Fangio.
Yeah. Or just not a head coach. Not a head coach.
Right. What
Bill would say about Fangio is, I don't care how good of a coach he is. Who's his offensive coordinator? He's not good enough. That's always going to be Vic's fault. Problem. Period.
I think as a head coach, he's a demonstrable failure.
Dog. Yep. He may not make it through this year.
No, a dog.
Yeah. Adam Gase. Dog.
Oh, and the guy in the New York Giants.
Joe Judge. Dog.
And I want to tell you another one. Detroit.
Matt Patricia. I was going to say that. Yeah. Matt Patricia.
Hey, Iggy, could you tell the story about Matt Patricia, what he said to the journalist one day?
Yeah, I guess it was a couple of years ago. It might have been like Patricia's first year in Detroit. And he had been really rude to the Detroit beat writers, been really late to a bunch of press conferences. I guess one guy was sitting there he didn't have his shirt tucked in and he was kind of slouching in his chair and asking a question. And Patricia interrupted him and said, "Can you just sit up and look more professional. And wait, can you just respect this? It's like, have you looked at yourself, Matt? You're the biggest schlub in the NFL.
He's a schlub.
You're not a dog. You're a schlub.
He's beyond a dog. He's a schlub.
I mean, he makes Andy Reid look like me.
Andy Reid looked like GQ, right? A model for GQ.
Yeah.
He's a schlub. And he's telling this guy, like, his problem is how the journalist is sitting. I mean, I would be tempted to say, if you think I'm unprofessional, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That would have been perfect. See, the thing I miss about you is everything. You're the best writer, the best interviewer, but the performance you would do. Sometimes athletes and coaches who didn't know you that well would say something snarky to you publicly. It was just always a mistake because you always had the perfect response and you didn't like stutter or missay it. Like you always had it ready and it was like, boom. You're like, oh, I didn't expect that from Lowell. And like journalists who knew you would kind of like wait for it. Like, I wonder who in the locker room is going to mess up today and give us something to talk about at dinner. And usually it would happen. I remember one time, poor Anthony Davis. I think that guy had social anxiety or something. Anyway, he usually didn't have to answer questions. He did not like answering questions. And there was one game that they lost up in Seattle where poor Mindy Bach was just doing her job, went over to Anthony Davis and was trying to ask some regular questions about how it felt to lose. And Anthony Davis was just like, I hate these questions. I hate these questions. He was like, he didn't have it in him to just go through the polite professional motions of answering nothing questions. He was upset that he lost. He didn't like answering questions. And he said, I hate this interview. I hate these questions. And he was being really rude to Mindy. And Trent Baalke saw it happening. And that was his guy. So Trent Baalke walked over and tried to like just diffuse it and end the press conference. And you turned and said loudly to Trent, is he representing your organization well right now?
I remember that.
And it was such a perfect thing to say that Trent stared at you with anger, but said nothing because he walked away. He knew, no, he's not representing your organization well right now. 2, anything he says can and will be used against him in your column. And B, it's best to just shut up around my dad. So that's what happened.
Was that in Seattle?
Oh, yeah.
I remember that, now that you say it. And you know what, Iggy? I felt so bad for Mindy. She was such a nice person. She was working hard, and she was the least confrontational person. I thought he was rude to her, and he was taking advantage of a woman. That's what Anthony was doing.
Agreed. I mean, she was asking questions like, how does it feel to lose to the Seahawks in Seattle? Like the easiest questions you could possibly imagine. And he's like, I hate that question. I hate this interview. I hate this.
Yeah. Like, it was disgusting.
Up. Yeah.
It was disgusting. And I remember I saw Baalke and I said really loud, is he representing your organization? Are you proud of him? Is he representing your organization well now? Baalke gave a look and he just walked out of the locker room. And you know what? I would do it again if I had the chance.
I know you would. And Anthony Davis heard you too, and he didn't have anything to say either. Bam Davis.
And if he did, I would have been happy to discuss it with him.
No, he wouldn't. Again, he's another one of these guys who might tweet something, but these athletes, they just can't compete with you verbally. They could. Anthony Davis could block you on a football field if you were coming around the edge, but in the locker room, he can't talk. He can't compete with you verbally, even though he's from New Jersey. Sorry, Anthony.
I'll tell you who could compete verbally: Steve Young, Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
Ronnie Lott, and sometimes
Richard Sherman.
Well, I've never met him. Sometimes I got into it with them, but Harbaugh. Harbaugh, people don't realize Jim Harbaugh is brilliant.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. And now, probably more worldly than Kyle Shanahan. Because Kyle Shanahan's brilliant too, but they're different.
I was going to say, in the real world, Jim Harbaugh has it all over Kyle Shanahan.
Yes.
As a football mind, I don't know. They're different. They're different.